Public Planning Committee meeting. I call the meeting to order. I would like to make the suggestion as chair that we adopt the agenda with one amendment, that we, after approval of minutes, have public comment before the new business. Without objection, is that approved?
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the minutes, regular meeting of May 9th. Are there any additions, deletions?
Adoption is written.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you very much. Given the amendment to the agenda, I'd like to ask anyone who has a public comment to come forward and offer it. Mr. DeLong, I presume?
Yes.
Welcome, and thank you for your thoughtful comments.
Good morning, council members. My name is DJ DeLong. I live in Sea Pines. I've had a home here for 27 years. Lived here full-time for 5 years. And I listened to all of the bridge discussions, previous meetings, and it occurs to me that there is no cure to our traffic problems for at least 5 years or more. And so my question really is, what are we going to do to solve our traffic problems now for commuters and on island? And it seems like the only way we can do it is get cars off the road, and the Palmetto Breeze has a key role in helping us do that. There's a role that the major employers have here. There are certain pockets of high density usage of people, the resorts, the hospital, and some of the shopping centers. And the part that I don't think may not have been tapped is the small shopping centers, like say Wexford Center there. The individual owners can't do much about it, but there's a management company that manages all those office buildings. And I hope that the Breeze will gather data from these major employers and the major centers of employment and use that to guide the sort of from here to there calculation that they must have to make in order to allocate resources to do this. I think there's a role here that the major employers play. It's sort of a chicken and the egg. If they were to guarantee or commit to buy a certain number of Palmetto passes each year to service their facility, because they know they need so many groundskeepers, they need so many housekeepers, they could make a commitment to Breeze that would give them cash flow to let them add additional resources and routes to serve those locations. And then they don't need to know exactly where people live, but if they had a mapping system where people could indicate, okay, this is the region I come from, it would help Palmetto Breeze to come up with a supply-demand balance and let them really do a better job of serving to get people off the roads. And there's going to have to be some form of incentive, either through discounted Breeze cards through these major employers, or directly to the individuals to get them to do that. So I think that the question comes up is who's going to lead this? You have the people with the information, these major employers, they know where the people live and they can get that information. And then you have the Breeze folks who understand how to create this transportation thing that will get people off the roads. There's a TV program last night, the Statesboro, Georgia, which has Georgia Southern, has their own, they just inaugurated a huge van system in the city of Statesboro to help people move around and not have to use cars to get back and forth from where they live to where they go to school and commute within the town. I can't believe we can't do better than Statesboro, Georgia. No disrespect to Statesboro, Georgia. Also, Enterprise Rent-A-Car has a van pooling program that they manage in 50 cities around the United States. They will do the survey, they will service the fleet, and they will operate it. Thank you very much. But the question is, who's going to lead this effort to bring this all together?
Thank you, Mr. DeLong. I appreciate that. Are there any other public comments at this time? Steve, would you like to take an opportunity to say anything at this point or just later?
I'll wait till then, thank you.
Okay, Steve Alford is the alternate to the Public Planning Committee. All right. New business report on Palmetto Breeze Annual Service Plan, Mary Lou Frazzoni. Now, Mary Lou, welcome. Did I hear a rumor?
Yes, you have heard it.
When do you
I
leave?
heard a rumor too. My last day is November 1st. And so I'm retiring. I'm pretty excited about it. We have a search firm looking for the next executive director. Find good people. We went through an interview process with our board and they selected them. And we're real happy with the work that they do. So I believe we'll find a very good replacement for me.
Well, you certainly have dedicated your life to improving the Palmetto Breeze, and we appreciate it. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
it's a challenge right now, and that's what I want to say. We're in the same boat as everybody. I need 5 mechanics. I have 2, and we don't have enough drivers, but we're close. And so we struggle just like every other employer here to get qualified people in these positions.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I would second the congratulations. You've done a really wonderful job at this. Your successor has big shoes to fill.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a kind of a passion. If you don't have a passion for it, you don't really belong in it,
Yeah, I bet.
just like you guys.
To survive.
Yeah.
I also extend my congratulations to you.
Thank
You
you.
have been tremendously informative and helpful, allowing us to see the process that we've gone through with the trolley system and getting it to where it is today. And I look forward to the future, but it will be sad that you're not here with us.
I appreciate that.
And I certainly can't sit here and not join in with the thanks that my colleagues have expressed. I appreciate, although I've worked with you a short time, I've watched you over the time, and I appreciate your reports and your dedication to providing transportation, so thank you.
Well, and you're welcome. And I didn't expect that, so I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Well, get on with the presentation and, of course, answering any questions y'all have as well. And we just did our annual presentation. I think I gotta push it. I got to do this, I think. I'm not the most IT proficient. There we go. Oh, hang on. There we go. Here's our agenda. We're going to talk about last year, the season summary, talking about the Island Brandon experience, our update, the parking, and any other questions you might have. So in 2023, we had 34,500 people ride the trolley. And anything compared to 2021 is lower. That was like a banner year. I remember in 2021, in March and April, right after COVID, the island was booked all the way through the end of August. So, we thought, oh, that's going to be our new benchmark, but it turned out that that was just really a really high mark. So we don't feel like we're falling short at all. And we believe, based on industry calculations, that has taken over 12,000 vehicle trips off the road. And the return on investment, I know you all asked me that, it's using the APTA formula, which is every $5 spent, is it $4, $5 or $4, or every dollar spent gives you back a return on investment of like $4. So we tried to give that number. This is a trolley count from the very beginning. The first year we started July the 16th, so it was a very short year, and I know because I came before you guys that they were empty a lot of times. There was a lot of trips that nobody was riding. People weren't sure what they were. And, it was a short year for us to just get ourselves out there. And then 2019, we charged $1 a ride, and we went to 18,000 from April to September and thought, okay, well, we're growing and things are good. COVID was very difficult for the whole system. Like, we didn't run, and then we ran a little bit, and it was a lot. So we didn't have a lot of riders during COVID. And then, as you can see, in 2021, we had 52,000 riders, and we added a second route. It was fare-free, and they took off. The trolleys took off. There was so many people there, and I've got an excellent marketing person getting the word out, and that was a banner year for us. And you can see up there in 2022, we went to 43,000, and last year, we were on track in the beginning of the year to really have the same amount, but it seemed like every weekend it rained. It started raining in the afternoons, and our trolley ridership was low. Like, people go out to dinner and use the trolley like that. We had a lot of rainstorms, and it really affected the ridership and the beach shuttle as well. So this year we're having much better weather, and we look like we're going to surpass the last year's amount of riders. And this is our social media, and I have to say, I think, I'm not real big on social media myself, but when you look at the trends in business and how many people and people on vacation are on Facebook, Instagram, and all the social media, I think we do a fantastic job. Brian Sullivan's going to address y'all on some marketing things before I'm finished, but he really does a fantastic job. He responds to every comment on Facebook. He interacts with people. He gives information out. And I think that's the key to having successful social media, is having somebody that answers immediately. And so I think it's really done an amazing thing for Palmetto Breeze. We have a following. We have a lot going on in social media. And then you can see he's broken down how many are visitors, how many are local people, and so it's really great information. It's a way to measure how we're doing in social media. So every year we use the USCB Island Ambassador Program. So every year before we start, because we seem to have new drivers every year because they're seasonal. And I think it's helped a lot. And the program was updated this year, and it had a lot of really good information, and it gives the drivers ways to interact with folks that don't know about Hilton Head. I don't know if you all have ever had that presentation, but it's very interesting and informing, and the drivers really like it, and all the staff takes it as well. We have the monitors in the trolleys, and we do have local events, and it's kept up to date, and I think people really enjoy that. We participate in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and anything we're invited to, we show up to. We do shuttles when it's the town putting them on. We do shuttles. We've been called for one day to say, hey, we need you to come and do a shuttle because they closed the beach and it's not working out, and we're out. We respond. We take care of whatever Hilton Head needs. One of the most popular promotions we do is the Breeze Trolley Rocks, and it's kind of taken off, and we do it right at the end of the year on Labor Day weekend. And we actually have, I don't know if you all are aware that we do, but we have a solar light that's made for bus stops that we're testing, and it's up right now, and it's on Deleon. And the idea of it is turtle friendly, it's solar, and it adds enough light so that people can see the bus stop and the drivers can see the people waiting at the stop. And so we, the company that makes those amenities, they gave us one to try for free. So we're trying it out. So if you all are out in the evening, look on Deleon and you'll see the light. And I think that amenities may be one of the next things that would really enhance the service. And here's some of the promotions. We made coupon sheets to give out to all of the hotels and different places that people get information on the trolleys, and they had to be reprinted. They went so fast, and so people like coupons. And what else it does, it helps the local businesses to showcase themselves, and it says what stop to get off on to use these coupons, and so it helps us as well. We also get calls where folks want to, they have a group or family coming in and they want to, we've had art hops where they go to the art, go to dinner, and then they have a dessert, and then they go to an art gallery or whatever there is for them to see. And then we also have people that want to go and hit a couple of the establishments, and Brian sets them up how to do it and where to get on, where to get off. And those are pretty popular. And it gives somebody that has a group of people something to do and get around the island. And for 2024, we started April 13th. We typically start the Saturday of Heritage Week, because prior to that, even though people think that they're going to ride on spring break, I think we started a little earlier one year and really didn't get much traction. But the week of Heritage, we get a lot of ridership, and then it takes off from there. And we do have our Catch the Breeze app that we had to redeploy our software and get updates and make sure all the tablets were working and the GPS. And so what it is that folks can go on their phones on our app and see where the trolleys are. So let's say they're trying to catch the trolley down at Caligny, and they're like, well, let's see where it is. Oh, there's one comes every 30 minutes. There's one in 5 minutes. We're not ready, but in 35 minutes we'll be ready. And so I think it really gives people peace of mind to track the trolleys, and especially if there's a traffic congestion and they're not on time, they can see where they are. And it helps us as well to manage the service. And this is our route, and to the right is the Westin. 18 is the Westin Hotel, and that's the second route we added. Stop 1, kind of right above the bus, is Shelter Cove, and 2 is Poseidon, the Poseidon statue in that area. And the only thing we changed this year over last year, every year we look at our service and what can we do better. We meet with the drivers after the service and ask them, what went good? What could we do better? What are people saying? And what we found out is that before we went from stop 12 on Dunnigan's Alley all the way to 1, and folks that needed to go from 2 back to 1 had to walk because we didn't, or ride all the way down to Caligny and back. And we hadn't really thought of that. And people were saying that to the drivers, like, oh my goodness, I have to ride all the way down and back. And the walk through from 2 to 1 is not really safe, coming by the Belks and through the cutaway, and just wasn't a good idea. So we were able to do it within the same schedule, and people are really appreciative. We go into 2, then we come back to 1. So they just wait for it and ride. So that was a great enhancement. And the rest of the route is the same. We changed it in 23 or 2, I think it was 3 though, to include the Low Country Park, the way we come up by the sandbox and come around that way. And that was a great enhancement. We get a lot of riders there. And we do the Caligny Beach shuttle service, and every year we sign an agreement, and the charge for that, because we were asked about a charge, is really just the variable rate to run the service so that it's pretty flexible. Instead of including the fully allocated rate, which you guys already pay your share of that, this is the amount we charge for that is just the same as we do for festivals. We charge what it costs to operate, just so you know that that's what that is. This year we've had really good beach ridership. We haven't had rain on the weekends, and so we do have, we're very busy. And we have the carts in the front. You know, we had 2 buses. We put the airport kind of carts on there, and they use them. All the stuff goes in. We use the lift. If someone has a bunch of stuff and they want to get it in the bus, the driver hops right out and lowers the lift, lifts it on up. And so it's working really well. And I just thought we would show you our, in general, ridership. And this is 23 was our last closed year because our fiscal year ends the end of June. And you can see our ridership remains very consistent from year to year. And, you know, I think we have a slight amount more trips in 23 than 22, and that's the entire system. And you can see on the top that Beaufort County consumes 70% of the service because we're a 5-county authority. So we do keep a lot of statistics, and we have to report all of this. So we do have that. And that's what I have. And then I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who wanted to, well, I can answer questions with you. He wanted to talk about alternative vehicles that you asked about.
While you're up there, are there questions at this time? Glenn?
Thank you. I'm interested in your marketing. I like the idea of coupons that simulate things, but can you describe in more detail some of your marketing efforts here?
Yes. And
What I'm referring to is
I can be secondhand, but this is my director of marketing,
Right, okay,
Brian
yeah,
Sullivan,
right,
and
yeah.
he is very, very competent at
Great,
this.
excellent, Brian, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us again today. And yes, she will be missed greatly. So it's a year-round strategy. You people ask me, well, what happens when it ends? Well, I start planning the next year. I'm already planning 2025. It's very beholden to our presence online because we don't have a huge amount of additional funding for advertising or promotion. So we rely very heavily on word of mouth, stakeholder support, the partners in the community, which from day one in 2018 has been phenomenal. And I've been in public transit since 1995, never seen anything like it. So this community, head and shoulders above the rest of the support I've seen for public transportation. So, and that is not a lie. It is absolutely the truth.
Brian,
Yeah.
when you say this community, are you talking about the island community?
I'm talking
or
about
the
Hilton Head
region?
Island, the town of Hilton Head Island.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. And the town definitely stands out in the low country too, from a support standpoint. Obviously, it's an economic driver, so it's kind of a realistic thing, obviously. But The trolley service was new, it was different, it was public transit in Hilton Head. I mean, it was definitely a different strategy to help alleviate some of the congestion. So we knew right away that there could be that challenge, but I worked very, very hard to maintain those relationships year-round, because without the support of the resorts, the hotels, the employers even, to a certain extent on the trolley, but obviously the visitors and the businesses that cater to them. So it's very relationship-based. And that transcends over to public or social media as well. So I take it very seriously that I respond as quickly as I can, because as a matter of fact, last night we had someone waiting wanted to know what the last pickup was at stop number 9, which is the Courtyard Hotel. And I saw it at about 8:15. I respond because I want that rider to be satisfied, even if it's just one ride. So it kind of comes back to the passion that Mary Lou mentioned. I have a passion for it. I have a passion for public transit, and I have a real passion for the Breeze Trolley. So people will say it's sort of like my baby. But anyway, so social media is the vast majority of what we do. What I'm very tickled with is that we're seeing business partners and riders promoting it. So when someone asks a question about how they get around or do I need a rental car, sometimes before I can answer it, someone else is answering it. So that, to me, is success from a marketing standpoint. It's anecdotal. You can't really measure it other than your following and what have you. But it's very much very cost-effective social media and word of mouth.
All right, that's excellent. You're aware that we spend a whole lot of money with the chamber to promote tourism, particularly in the off-season. But their materials are up. Are you working with the Chamber of Commerce, and are they publicizing what the Breeze is doing here on the
Yes,
island?
they do. Again, excellent partner from the very beginning. It was new to them too. Most of their membership is private enterprises, right? Private local businesses. So it was a little bit of a learning curve that first year, kind of like everybody. But after that first year, and even then, even in the first year, they kind of understood it and said, oh, okay, this is a public service. You know, we were already a member as Palmetto Breeze, but we were able to leverage their relationships with those businesses. So absolutely, huge partner.
Excellent. I'm interested in the beach shuttle. I don't think we have statistics here that break out the usage of the beach shuttle.
We could get them for you. We take passenger counts. I can tell you that on days that it rains, we call our contact and say, do you still want us out there? And when it was the first day that we ever ran and they advertised it, said, yes, it's the first day, get out there, no one rode.
Right.
So we have days where no one rode, and most of the time when no one rides, it's raining. If the weather's good, they're busy all day long taking people back and forth. But I can provide the ridership numbers for
Can you
this
give
year.
us a feel today of what that's like? How many shuttles are you running, and what's the occupancy on those particular
We
buses?
run from 10 a.m. to 4:30, but you have to remember, we're taking them from USCB to Coligny, and starting at 1 o'clock, the trolley can return people all the way till 10 o'clock at night back to USCB.
Right.
So we're going both ways up until 4:30, and then we fade out. The bus, that's the bus we use, and we remove 4 seats. So there's 20 seats, and there's a luggage rack to put things. There's a lift on the back where we can lift things up and down, and it runs continuously.
What about the occupancy, typical occupancy on one of those beach shuttles?
I would say, if they get 10 to 15 people, they would say they're pretty full with everything in there. I can give you the ridership count. I would only just be guessing, right now to say.
Understand,
But I know they stay real busy on great beach days.
Right.
We do have through June 30, the tally was 2,122. So that doesn't break it down by day. Fridays tend to be a little lighter. Saturdays and Sundays, if the weather's good, are usually pretty busy. And there is a pattern. I'll drive through there or just happen to be there. The beach parking is filling up until, say, about 10, 10:30, 11, depending on the day. Then all of a sudden, it starts to get kind of busy up at USCB. And I was there one day, met with the driver just to say hi, and she was bored, nobody there at USCB. And while we were talking, which was all of about a 5-minute conversation, 2 huge families with beach carts came up. So I actually took a picture. I mean, it was really it was absolutely full bus. So it fills up. And then, as Mary Lou said, a lot of the people that want to stay on the beach later, they just catch the trolley back. The trolley drops them off.
explain to me a little more about the Rocks campaign or the Rocks Day that you do.
You got the right man for
All
it.
right, good.
For those who may not know, hiding painted rocks is it's a pastime. It's almost like a scavenger hunt type thing that people do all over the country. And I had done it at a previous consulting assignment in California, of all places, where we, just for like a week, hid some rocks at stops to kind of promote how the route works and where the stops are. So 3 years ago, I think, we decided, let's try that. And it came about because the last weekend before Labor Day in August is it was a quieter ridership weekend for us. And my primary job really is to drive ridership. And it was bothering me. I was like, okay, come on, there's still people here. There's locals that are here. Yeah, a lot of the schools up north are back in, what have you. What can we do that's sort of a thank you maybe to the locals, kind of targeting the locals first, that is sort of a fun event, a family-oriented thing. And then maybe we kind of said, if we did the painted rocks and hit them along the route, and we partner with Culture HHI, so the town, to give it sort of some legitimacy that it's a real instigator of creativity. And we did it that first year, and it was a pretty good response. In fact, it actually won an award that year in public transit. So the next year, we did it again, and we had a bunch of people who had done it again. And that year, we attracted visitors. We had people saying, well, I come in July. I want to do this. So this year, we've allowed people to do it earlier. So some of the folks have been doing it a little bit earlier. Like, I know there's one family in Ohio that's painting rocks now, and they're going to bring them down in August. So it does move the needle on the ridership that weekend. Not a ton, but it does move the needle. We did see, I think it was like a 12% increase from 21 to 22 on that weekend.
Excellent. That sounds like a great program, and I salute you
It's
for it.
fun, to be honest. We're there tonight at Party in the Park, painting rocks for free with Culture HHI. So it's fun.
Last question about marketing. Do you have people there at Coligny who are explaining, wearing a Breeze shirt, explaining that you don't have to park over there, you can park at USCB, and we'll be glad to bring you here and take you back?
We don't have extra people. The drivers are very keenly aware of that. Actually, the most important weekend is Heritage Weekend, because that's when the Heritage shuttles are all over the place, right?
Right.
And people are confused. And actually, that's great for our drivers that it's at the beginning of our season, because it teaches them to talk to the passengers, or the potential passengers, who are there at the beach park, who are a little confused. It teaches them how to do it and stay on schedule, so that they can approach some of the folks in the area. A couple of our drivers are better than others, to be honest, but they do their best to do it.
Why don't you think about trying to use the ambassadors that are out there to promote your services?
Absolutely. I think the first year of that program, I did meet with them. I went to each of the ambassadors and met with them. And I think it kind of caught on a little bit. Maybe we should re-engage that.
I would suggest that. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Glenn.
We also, on our destination sign, it'll say where we're going, but it also can give a PR message. And so we decided a couple years ago that people may not know what we're doing. So it says free trolley. So it'll say like Coligny Beach free trolley. And so if they see it come by, oh, it's free. Because again, people will stand there and go, I don't know what that is.
I look at the system that we have now as sort of two-tier system. We have the regional system, and then we have our island shuttle system. So I would encourage us to cover both with our questions. Patsy, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, sure. First of all, it's great to be able to have shuttle service. I know when my husband and I travel, we use the local bus service. It's educational and very cost-effective. You can get a lot of places. So what's your experience? You're up and down. First, let me focus on the beach shuttle. It sounds as though there's some times on the weekend that we don't need any more parking at USCB. There's nothing happening there. Or maybe there's something happening after a certain time. So do we need more parking where there's shuttles going back and forth is the first question.
I think a lot of it's going to be contingent on what happens in the Coligny area for parking, which, that drives everything. But I think right now, as Brian was saying, we do it on Fridays, and I don't think we even need to run on Friday, but we were told, yes, we want you here on Friday. I think Friday's not really that overcrowded. And on the weekends, we absolutely, need the shuttle or people wouldn't get to the beach. And I don't think we've ever overflowed the USCB parking lot. Not to say, it depends what's going on at Low Country Park, the parking in Coligny and all of that, because if that transitions into a different form of parking, it may drive more people to look for alternatives.
So if we start charging for parking at Coligny, you'll see more business at USCB
I think it
parking
depends
lot.
on how much you're charging. If it's pretty reasonable, I think people won't mind paying. And, I just my own personal experience, if it becomes $4 an hour or something, I'm going to go look for somewhere else, even though there is nowhere else. But I would go find a shuttle.
So are there peak times where you have people in line at USCB to get on the shuttle?
I think that it starts, as Brian was saying, around 10:30, 11.
Yeah, I can't say that I've ever witnessed a line. I did a Memorial Day weekend. That was the most full I've seen the lot, the USCB lot.
And how about at the Coligny pickup site? Is there a line there for the shuttle?
Not typically. It kind of spreads out naturally, and since we have the capability to take folks on the trolley, it kind of spreads it out and gives them that alternative too on
Unless
the way
there's
back.
an afternoon rainstorm and then everybody wants
That's a
to
different
leave.
story.
Yeah. How about we've had some gridlock on Pope Avenue. Does that affect the shuttle too?
It does a little, but I'll tell you that it's such a short route, and the drivers, they drive safe and they do the best they can and they get folks back. So it works pretty well. They do also know alternatives if there's an accident or something crazy that happens. There's not a ton of alternatives, but there's a couple that they can take to sometimes turn left to go right kind of thing. But generally, I think it flows pretty smoothly.
And one option we've looked at is if we charge for parking at Coligny, is what about the employees that work in that area and running a shuttle for them, for employees from USCB down to the Coligny area where they might be working. That would be a different schedule because you have different shifts for folks.
Right.
Is that something even
Well, we had
thinkable?
some conversations early on before the bank opened, and they were interested in shuttles, but it came down to they wanted late night service, and we have a limited amount of drivers, and our drivers, because most of them get up, the commuter drivers get up 4 a.m, other drivers get up really early. If somebody works till midnight, there's safety rules that are national. They have to have 8 hours off from time off to time on. So then now we can't really use them. And 8 hours isn't really enough by the time you get home and get a good night's sleep. It's more like 10 hours. So nighttime doesn't work really well for us. And our drivers that work for us now, when we have something at night, which we did at one time, we took J1 employees to the Publix and the Bi-Lo's with a midnight pickup. And my staff ended up driving that before it was over. It was just for the summer. And so we already know that this doesn't really work for us.
Challenge, yeah. Are you familiar with the Statesboro van system?
Yes, I saw the news article myself, and they went from 4 cutaways to 8 cutaways, which is very admirable that they're putting their money into doing transportation. We have like 44 buses, and so, we're quite a bit larger than them. But I applaud anybody that looks to that. I saw it on the news this morning, and I think that's an amazing thing.
And I'm not sure what a cutaway is. I mean, I know clothing, what a cutaway is.
A cutaway's like what we just saw for the beach shuttle. A cutaway's more like a church bus looking thing, and they can be shorter or longer.
Okay.
And then buses are, of course, buses with the bigger tires and more seats.
Okay. Let's expand. We have really 2 local services. We have the beach shuttle and then the across the island, not quite across the island, but across much of the island. Where's the biggest demand on that shuttle system around the island? What's the biggest demand area?
I think Brian could answer that.
By far the highest boardings and deboardings is at Shelter Cove Town Center because it's our transfer point for the 2 routes.
Okay.
So that's significantly higher. The next highest is Coligny, stop number 8. The next highest is Shelter Cove Harbor Marina, stop number 2. And then the next highest last year was the Westin.
Yeah.
It drops a little bit, but the Westin is quite a generator of trips. It's very convenient to their guests, and they promote it.
Is there any area that you've noticed that we need to be serving that we're not serving now?
I can answer that. We looked at, we did a master plan a few years back and looked at how we do public transit. And really the next piece of service that should be added to our trolley system or a year-round system is service that serves the north end of the island. We have all kinds of rules that we follow, and one of them is Title VI, in that you can't focus all of the resources in one area. You really have to cover the whole area before you enhance, like the south end, we should be going up to the north end. And so that we have a system that serves the other folks that live on the north side of the island.
Is that connected to your federal funding then? You mentioned
Yes,
Title VI.
absolutely.
Okay.
And we do a Title VI plan. We just got our triennial review with the federal government. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
there's rules to all this federal money.
Oh, sure. So let's go then broader, and I think it's the slide you had right before questions and thank you that showed folks coming from other counties. Yes, that one. So, in cooperation with Palmetto Breeze, we're trying to figure out what to do about our workforce. So this shows where they come from. So my question is, where are they going? So are there particular areas? Is there a higher rider number to go to Marriott or Weston or
So I'll give you a brief overview of that. We do pick up in 5 counties, and all the buses come into Palmetto Breeze, which is in Bluffton, and that's our transfer point. And when I first started, we really weren't dropping that many people off in Bluffton or along the way, and now we drop people off all along the way at different businesses and workforces, and then they get to Bluffton, and there's a transfer, and all the people transfer to different buses. And we have designated buses on the island that go to the Greenery, the Weston, Marriott's. They go to all the areas that they're asked. And if an employer calls or even a passenger calls and says, "Hey, I just got a job at this and such a place. Do you all serve it?" We will serve it. We alter routes. We just altered one of our routes to go on Marshland Road for someone that requested to go in the back gate, that it was too far for him to walk where we went. We changed the route the next week. We do that because this is a very vibrant, it's a moving thing, and you can't just say that's all we do, because these people that used to ride in Jasper County on this road no longer ride, but these folks over here would really like to come to work. We make adjustments, and we have the ability in the rural area to do that because it's a huge area, and we're very responsive to that. So employers that need folks that come in can just call us and we'll see what we can do. Here's where it's really needed, and we discussed it at one point. If you want to ride our buses to work, you're getting up wherever you live around 4 in the morning, and you're probably getting on the bus between 5:30 and 6 or 5:15 and 6, because they end up at our facility around between 6:30 and 7, depending on what's going on, and then they're on the island dropping off between 7 and 8 o'clock. And when we leave to go home, we pick them up a little before 5 so that we can actually get in front of the traffic rush, and then we take them home. Second shift, third shift, alternate shifts, dial a ride where people dial, have a way to call and say, "Hey, I want to come to work at 1 o'clock, and this is where I live." That needs to be developed somehow, but everything takes money. But we looked at trying to do a second shift bus from the Beaufort area over here, where it would be like 1 o'clock till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and we didn't get enough traction to get that going. And between not having the buses and the drivers and the finances, it just didn't take off. And it's mostly really asked for in the summer, but I can see that would be a way to attract riders, and maybe have meetings out in the counties to find out what people are interested in, or meetings with the employers here that say, well, what shifts are you trying to fill, and how do we go about that? And so I believe really engaging in the employers and employees and seeing what times are necessary, because if you don't have to be to work till 10 in the morning, it's very hard to get up at 4:30 and come to work. And so people don't. And so and the other thing that happened, Allendale used to be our huge ridership, and we used to have to bring a second bus out all summer long. Not anymore. They've opened warehouses and different kind of places where people can work in their counties. So we're seeing that people that don't want to commute that long commute are working in Allendale it is. In Colleton, they're still coming in because the pay is better, the benefits are better, and they come in from Colleton.
can you provide for us where your major drop areas are so we know which employers have the greatest ridership coming across?
We could develop something, I mean, anecdotally, or we don't count when people get off, but we can ask the drivers to count where they're getting off, and we can provide that.
Yeah, I think we'd be curious to find out where that is because we're trying to figure out where big service areas are and the greatest needs are. How about a program that Mr. DeLong suggested today where you work with employers to find out, some of the major employers that are bringing employees to their spot? And would it be helpful to buy a book of passes for X amount of employees, maybe at a discount rate? Is there something like that?
I can talk about that. A lot of the employers do pay for the tickets. The actual cost of the ride is not even close to paying for the buses. I mean, it really is not. But the Marriott, for instance, they realized that they had an issue, and they bought Tidal Bluff and converted it into H2B housing. And they're there from March to October, and they actually purchase service from us that we take their folks to 5 different Marriotts. And so they're not relying on people from Hampton and Allendale and other counties to go to work. And so they pay for the bus and their folks ride. And so that was a great solution. We used to do that for Palmetto Bluff as well, but they found housing for their folks, new housing real close to their facility, and so they're taking care of that now themselves. But that's worked. And we already have businesses that will buy the bus passes and the tickets. And we actually had one year is it short-term rental, the vacation rental? Who were the people?
Oh, yeah.
They bought passes for all of our riders for 2 months, and because they give back to the community, and just called me up and said, "Can we do this?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And I think they spent $20,000 or more buying people's bus passes as an appreciation.
Can you give us some data on those pass systems like that so that, maybe we can find a way to encourage more of that cooperation?
Yeah, and I think what happens is people that are trying to decide, do I stay here in my county and work, or do I go to Hilton Head where the wages are better because there's a sacrifice for the ride. But, if they don't have to pay for the ride, and it's funny to watch the different hotels, what they're advertising. One of them supplies their lunch, supplies their bus ticket, and they were advertising in the bus next to each other, trying to attract each other's employees.
Right.
But it's interesting.
I think that'd be helpful to know. And where the drop sites are, when we have bad weather, it's really hot or it's raining, is there a need for more bus stops where there's cover protection for folks?
Well, I always think bus stop amenities are a great thing. Right now, the bus stops that are on Hilton Head were built by the Rotary 20 or 30 years ago. We don't own them. The town takes care of them. And the reason I'm hesitant, I'll just tell you, in the beginning, we put money in a grant that said buy bus shelters. And then working with the folks on the staff, they said, no, we're not going to buy prefab. So we moved that money in that grant, and that grants are 5 years, and then they close. Then the next grant, we put build bus shelters, because you have to put in exactly the code. And so we held on to that for 3-4 years, and we asked, but there was no plan yet, because they weren't sure the route was going to stay or whatever. So we liquidated that. So currently, we don't have any money in the grants that say that, but every year we program a new grant, and we can do build, we can do buy. We would love to put out amenities, but we do it in partnership. So let's say we decide, hey, we do want a bus shelter at Shelter Cove, because that's a big waiting place. We can use our grant money to purchase the shelter, but we want to partner with whatever the locality is, as far as getting a pad poured, making sure it's ADA accessible, the amenities, the benches, solar lighting, all that we can do with our grant money. And as soon as we know, like if you told me today, yes, we definitely want to buy or build shelters, the very next grant we'll put that money in there. And because we've already liquidated it, and so absolutely, I think it would help a lot.
I think it might be helpful to know where those high numbers are for locations that might need some shelter for folks waiting.
And what else it does when you put up bus stop amenities, tastefully, of course, is that it's kind of a wayfare. People see that and go, oh, because they come from everywhere. Oh, they have a bus system.
Right.
It's pretty keys in, and then it goes down this route where these signs are and where these shelters are.
To increase ridership.
Yeah, well, and then people just know without even having to, research it all, hey, they got a system,
That's where
let's
the
see what it
stop
does.
is, yeah, okay, all right. You mentioned funding, so I guess most of your funding comes through the federal government, and then you get some from the state and local governments. How does that funding
Yeah,
work?
the majority is from the federal government, and Hilton Head pays on our urban side, and so Hilton Head and Bluffton are a small urbanized area, and so we get a pot of money just for that area from the FTA. And we also get state money that's urban that goes to this area, and so it's a population split, and actually Hilton Head really got off well because Bluffton grew and unincorporated Beaufort on the urban side of Bluffton grew. So your percentage went down actually due to the 2020 census. So you guys are the only ones happy with that. But the local match funding matches the grants. And so when it's a purchase of a vehicle, it's 15% match. When it's purchase of other things like bus shelters, it's 20% match. When it's the actual operating money, it's 50% match. And so we calculate out our budget and the grant, and then every year we ask for, we take the urbanized area of Bluffton, Hilton Head, and we do it by percentage of population. And then we ask for that. And we also ask Hilton Head, and thank you so much for providing it, for a contribution to the rural side, because some of those counties fall short, and we don't want to stop the transportation. And so you guys gave us 50,000. We asked for 50,000 towards the rural. The rural match is around between 6 and 700,000. So we appreciate the support of the rural system as well.
Mr. Chair, one more question. We're working on the North Point development for workforce housing. That might be up and running in a couple of years, hopefully sooner the better. Is that something that Palmetto Breeze could work with us on, some sort of shuttle system for those employees to get to work in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, it all has to be worked out as far as how it's being funded, but our commitment is to be at every affordable housing that exists to get people to work, because affordable housing, if they have one car, they're doing well. They don't have two cars, one for each person. And I think that is our mission, is to get people to work and to be members of society. So absolutely.
That's on the north end.
And that plays into the next route, ought to be north end. But what we're doing with the trolley is just seasonal. And so we did a regional airport plan, and we had a route set up year-round for the airport, but that was an anomaly year where they overloaded the airport, and we thought, oh, well, this is going to happen every year. And people, they had no transportation. It was a little bit of a crisis, so we took some planning money, and we have it ready to go, the plan ready to go. But that would be the kind of thing that perhaps when that happens, that we'd add a north link and then look at that airport shuttle, link that in as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you both again. And Patsy, you had a lot of my questions, so hopefully I won't take too long. I am interested, and have been for quite a while, in hearing how we can use this system, which you've developed beautifully for the visitor side, and implement it more towards getting our workforce onto the island in a convenient way. I was curious, at that left-end transfer station, is there parking there?
No.
There's no parking there. So everyone who comes to use the bus system onto the island has come from another.
Yeah, and we have drop-offs. We have a lot of people bring people and drop them off. And so I see that all the time. And at the end of the day, the contractors roll in and drop people off. And there are a couple people that park in our lot, but we're overcrowded over there anyway. And they park there and take the bus to Hilton Head. There are a couple.
Right, so I'm just wondering if one way to solve the early morning rise and commute to get to the Bluffton station to get onto the island, if that would be alleviated if we had, for those who do have cars, a parking space where then perhaps the Breeze or whomever could pick them up.
Yeah, I see the vision here as this area grows, that we have park and rides on both sides.
Yeah.
And people park their car, and it's secure, and they have video cameras so that nothing happens to their car while they're gone. And they take a shuttle over to probably the other park and ride lot where we would have smaller buses to disperse on the island. And I mean, I see that as very feasible for doing the transportation. And once the bridge is built, I'm hopeful that maybe we can convince somebody that to do buses on shoulders, because they do that in a lot of places, because people need an incentive to get out of their cars. Cars are great, you know, you can get everywhere. But if the incentive is, hey, if I ride this bus, I pass all these people that are waiting in their cars, I'm going to get on the bus. I worked out in the LA area, and our commuter buses that came 48 miles were sold out with a waiting list, because that's what people did. They came and they parked their car and they got on the bus, and they have bus lanes, and they went straight into work. And if you got in your car, it took 2 or 3 times as long.
So that would create 4 lanes on each, and I would
Well, it
prefer
would just
not
only
to do
buses
that, but
only in-
certainly.
It would be buses only in the shoulder lane.
Right, well, they could use one of those 3 lanes available to them, so before that one gets out there too far, I can tell you now, that's, but I do understand the point of what you're making is the transfer people onto the island in a more efficient way. And that's something that has been a goal of mine for quite some time, so I'm happy that we're talking about that. And I also, you know, need to, while I'm making statements, make sure that we always keep in mind that we're not in LA, we're not, you know,
Right.
all of these big cities. As you know, my stepfather, who, incredible man, was a Houston Transit driver for, sure I've mentioned at some point, I talk about him often, and I think about him all the time when we're having these conversations. And I know how important those routes are to people, but we are Hilton Head in a much smaller community, so we'll find a way to do it. So I do want to focus on that. Is a survey something akin to what Mr. DeLong has talked about, one that I think we've all heard about over the course of time, approaching the businesses and the ridership in terms of what makes sense for them? Is that something that y'all would put out, or is that something that we should coordinate?
We actually don't have a planning department at all. We use LCOG as our planning arm. We have an agreement with them, and they're actually heading up our Northern Beaufort Transit Study. And so between the chamber and, you know, we have some staff hours, but we don't have any planners on staff. But
So that's something that we
yeah,
should.
and LCOG could probably be, they have planners, you know, and they are responsible for our planning. And so I think that that's real important
Yeah.
to start to flush it out.
I do too, and I would suggest that as we discuss this a little bit further and look beyond just what the services are now, that we look to LCOG to find out what they have on their agendas and what they're in works, and how we can work with them to get that information and that data sooner rather than later. Because as the shuttles have become popular and work well for the island to get people here and the other place, we're so pretty much, and I'm going to ask this question, focused on tourists, when I think we ought to be focusing a little bit more on how our residents and how our workforce are using the facilities. And so if we can put that much effort as we had in the past into that, we'll have something moving along. But to that point, do you find that workers are utilizing the shuttle? Are there folks who are going from their homes to work and using the shuttle that we currently have in place?
There are workers that use the trolley, and they work at the Kroger, and I think Brian probably has a better idea of who people are that use that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, anecdotally, 4th of July, it was crazy at Shelter Cove, and the very first people to the bus, to the trolley system, were 5 workers that had just gotten off because they closed, right? And I was surprised. I was like, wow. And we knew there were workers who were like, well, you're going to have to sit here, but at least it's air conditioned, because we were waiting for the fireworks to end to fill the buses to get into the flow of traffic. So yeah, they do use it. I know there's at least one passenger that lives in the Cordillo area who rides all season long, because she pays, I think, an Uber fare off season. So she loves it. And she works in the shops at the fresh market shops area. So, and that's just what I've seen that I know of. I know the drivers would probably have more stories. And I see there's several frequent riders that are clearly locals, local residents, local workers that are using it. So the vast majority is definitely visitors, there's no doubt, but there is maybe a 10 or 15%, just kind of guessing, maybe as high as 20 that are locals. And a lot of locals use it for social reasons too, to go around, go out to the bars, go to the restaurants.
Okay, so I think that's one place where, in terms of marketing for what we currently have in place, we could emphasize an opportunity for workers to be able to move about on the island, just using what we currently have in place. And then we can hopefully work quickly with regard to how we more regionally address. I am concerned, though, thinking back about some data that was provided to us by the consultants that we used for the bridge, where they discounted the effectiveness of that type of regional transportation onto the island. Is that consistent with what, Mary?
I don't know what their criteria was for evaluating it, because can it solve the problem that a lane will solve? No, but can it make the commute better for everyone? And can it give folks and families choices? And I worked in Chapel Hill at one time, and we went fare free while I was there, and we were consistently transporting 3 million passengers a year. And the fare free system now transports 7 million a year. And we got letters, and they're very green up there, but we got letters that we sold our car. We have one car now, and I don't have a car at all. I rent a car when I want to go places because I don't need a car. And I mean, it was very heartwarming to see all of what happened when people embraced using the transit system.
So a little bit of effort goes a long way.
It does.
And I also question how they came to the conclusion that they did, and I think additively, if we put a number of these things in place, we will solve a significant part of our workforce issues and transportation issues. So thank you for all of that. What is a cost to ride? You mentioned that the cost to ride doesn't pay for.
It's different. The largest fare on the commuter bus is $4 one way. The cheapest fare on the commuter buses is $2, and that's if you stay in the same county. That's like, we call it local fare. So if somebody gets on in Bluffton and wants to come over here, it's $2. If they get on in Hampton, it's $4.
In our overall, I know you've mentioned in a couple of different categories, and I should know it off the top of my head, but I don't. What is the overall cost of what is the overall cost for the shuttle that we currently have on Hilton Head?
That's a great question, and I don't have it broken down like that, but I know that our entire budget, rural and urban, is around, I'm gonna say 6 million, in between the 6-7 million area. It's not cheap to run. The buses cost a lot to maintain, you know, all the personnel we have.
We would like that number, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want it broken down? I mean, I can try to allocate stuff or do it by mileage. We can figure something out. You want to know what it costs for the trolley and for the beach shuttle?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. That and would go a long way for me. And then I had written down here a number of the match dollars that we provide back or that are needed with regard to vehicles, 15% match, and operating 50, I think you said 50% match. Those are important numbers for us to know, especially as, at least in my mind, and I hope in others, we are beginning to look for the effort that was put into the trolley to be put into a more regional opportunity to bring workforce conveniently and effectively onto the island. The big number that you gave us, shifting gears a little bit, the big number that you gave us with ridership, does that include everyone? And is that by individual or is that by group? How is it counted?
Oh, you mean on the trolleys?
On the trolleys, yeah,
It's
shifting
per
gears,
ride.
sorry.
It's not a one-way or a round trip. It's a one-way. It's per ride. It's every time they get on, they get counted.
Each person who gets on.
And so if somebody rides 4 times in a day, that's 4 riders. Because
Gotcha.
they rode 4 times.
Okay. So I think a lot of the statistics that break down that data, and I think, Patsy, you may have alluded to this, and would be really helpful for us to know. And it would also, I think, be helpful for us to know, and I'm not sure, again, if this is a survey that we create and we have available and people can maybe, fill it out with a little golf pencil and drop it in a bucket or something on their ride, is where are they coming from? Or are they coming from Bluffton, or are they coming from somewhere further away? And where are they going to? Are they going to the shops? Or are they just simply coming to the beach for the afternoon? And that type of information. But I do appreciate, and I could go on and on with questions. I love what you do. I do think that there's an awful lot that we need to really sift through to understand how that's working here on the island, how we can better utilize the resources that we have to create some relief for our road system and for our employers. So,
And so the last thing I want to add, just along the same lines, is that we get a formula-based apportionment every year, and that's not determined by me, of course. But there are opportunities for other grants. They all go by numbers. And for example, a 5339 grant is bus and bus facilities. So you could go after that grant and have it laid out what you want. If you have political support, you're pretty well, on your way. But what's held us back for so long is that every grant you put in, you have to have the local match. And we just scrape by. I mean, don't have a lot of extra money, or no extra money. So let's say we went after a $5 million grant, bus and bus facilities, to improve transportation on Hilton Head, that would have to be matched. And that has I'm just letting you know that as you move forward, that there's federal money that we can go after if we can say, yes, we can match this grant.
50% match?
50% for operations, 15% for vehicles, 20% for other capital. So you lay out all what you need, and then you figure out the matches, and you say, yes, we have a commitment for the match. We have political support letters. We have a plan of what we want to do. And it's possible to get that rolling, but it is a lot it's a big endeavor, and we have to be sure of what we want to do and what we're trying to do. But I think it would be definitely in the future here.
I think in terms of considering those matches and et cetera, having that survey information, that critical data to be able to understand what we have now and where we're going and what the solutions, really tangible solutions can possibly be. And one last piece of, and I know, David, you're always sensitive to this, over the years we've talked about it, is the type of vehicles that we have on Hilton Head, right? We don't want your standard buses. We want something that is more in keeping with the character of the island. And even going forward, and I think we're about to hear a little bit about it, is what type of ecologically sensitive buses
So
that we
for
can.
us to purchase the vehicles, which would be beneficial because 85% is grant covered, they have to go through crash testing in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And so they crash the bus and make sure it's safe. If in a rollover, it's safe in a side hit. And if they don't pass, then we don't buy them. And so that's what you buy with grant money. Other communities, and Brian will talk about it, that do alternative vehicles are not using FTA money.
I want to give Council Member Alford the opportunity, who is an alternate on our committee, a chance to speak. And Steve, I need to take just a minute to excuse myself. I'll be right back. You go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reminds me of a comment I used to make for public appearances.
He's gone.
I move people when I speak, for one by one, away they sneak. It's pretty clear that public transportation is a very important matter here. We have, well indicated by your questions and comments, we have two areas that we have a very significant interest in public transportation. One is respect to workforce availability. We've spent a lot of time dealing with workforce housing, but transportation is a related aspect of that. And so we need to focus heavily on how we are going to get our employees transported from Bluffton and other areas, in addition to the ones that we can house on the island. The second thing that's of very significant importance is the 278 bridge. As Mr. DeLong indicated, we're not going to drive across that bridge for another 5 or 6 years. We have to do some things in the meantime to deal with that. The resolutions that we passed last week dealing with the bridge indicated that we would look at alternate forms of transportation. I wanted to ask our friends from Palmetto Breeze, if money were not an object, and would you be in a position at some appropriate time to give advice to the town as to how we should deal with the questions of employee transportation and general transportation prior to the completion of the bridge, as more or less as a consultant might do?
I mean, within my expertise in transportation, of course. But trying to think of what piece I can bite off, because that was a big.
Yeah, it's a big question. I'm
yes.
not suggesting that you answer it at the present time, but at some point.
Well, I think that's what makes public transit go, is the partnerships between the community and the agency that's running the public transportation. And, that is our mission, is to provide that transportation and to work it out with the partnerships. And, there has to be planning, and this doesn't happen overnight. So that gives us time if we're having a planning study and figuring out how much money we need to do what we need to do. And as I spoke to you earlier, we also struggle with employees. And at one time it was like, oh, well, maybe we don't pay enough for mechanics. So I took the cap off and said, put the ads out, and depends on qualifications. We're not even getting applications. We've spent probably over $500 or $600 a month advertising for mechanics for 6 months, and we got 2 applications, and they weren't even qualified. I have a recruiter hunting for me for a mechanic all over the state. Haven't got anybody. So there's a bigger problem with us growing. We can only grow as we can grow. And we're using outside shops. We're sending stuff out. We're doing what we have to do to make this work. But there are limitations that limit how we grow based on having employees. And that has to be conquered as well.
Steve, other
Based on the number and type of questions that you have raised today, I would like to make a recommendation for potential action by this committee. And that is that we ask staff to investigate the role of transportation for both of the important aspects that we have to deal with, and that staff pursue the kind of questions that you've been raising and others with the assistance from Palmetto Breeze and other knowledgeable people. So my suggestion is would you be willing to consider a request to staff to pursue this matter?
Steve, might this work? Request staff investigate alternate strategies to address transportation challenges and opportunities for regional and island services with the goal of increasing ridership?
Yes. Very good, yes. They did it better than I could, which is why you're chairman. So.
Anything else that you'd like to add?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. I do have a couple of thoughts, and I'm not going to take time because I think we are getting to a place where we can have some action. But I mentioned earlier that we have 2 systems right now. We have the regional system, and then I'll call it the island system. I think we're at a point now where we have to consider a 3rd tier. And that 3rd tier is a very local kind of corridor system that moves people in very small vehicles up and down Pope Avenue and Palmetto Bay Road as a starting point. It might be Main Street, the next, we're doing district planning at this point, and how we move people in our congested areas is critical. And so the question to you is Palmetto Breeze the right place to go to look for alternate ways of addressing that particular issue, not the regional issue, not the, but the forward planning issues of that detailed kind of transportation network or system.
Certainly look at what we're able to do and to see if that meets the needs and also look at, the budget part of it. But yes, I think that that's something we should look at. I don't know if as it flushes out, if that's going to be our transportation. And some of these alternative vehicles, we really can't purchase them. And Brian was going to show you some pictures of what he found out in Florida, but they have different funding mechanisms that they're not using federal money for it. They're using I don't know, that's Brian's thing. I can't remember, but they're using state of Florida and some other things. Is it on there?
I think so. Shay, I might need your help. I don't see the.
If you pull up the
You'll find.
icon,
I want to be respectful of our time here.
Yes, she loaded some stuff up, but he looked into it, and, certainly there are beach communities using alternative type vehicles, but they are not, there we go. They're very beachy, but they're not using any federal money for that. They're using some Florida state money and then some.
This first example here, this is a discontinued service, but it's not too far. It was about a year or two ago that they discontinued it. This was in Fort Lauderdale Beach. And so they used what they call the Seabreeze tram. It was, I think this was either LNG or CNG powered vehicle, obviously open air. And it was really just went up and down their strand, which is very well defined there. And it's got beach on one side and business hotels, resorts, all that on the other side. So I don't know exactly why that was discontinued. I haven't gotten a hold of anybody at the city of Fort Lauderdale for that.
It's that thing. I think,
Okay, well,
it's a
this
PowerPoint.
this is an area that we aren't prepared to discuss very thoroughly today. It's an idea that
Oh, there you go.
this committee may feel is important to district planning. So I think it is included in that request for staff to investigate comment.
And this is what Lee Tran is going to use next. This is what they have on order, correct?
Yeah, they're ordering these about 100,000, give or take, for what you see there. It's an F-350 truck pulling 2 trailers. And that's in Lee County. That's on Fort Myers Beach.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think we have to pursue that anymore. And I appreciate the effort that you went into, Brian, to prepare those. A couple of comments regarding who leads. I think Mr. DeLong brought that up at one point. I think that's important for us to work through. And if this committee feels that request for staff to pursue and investigate, then I think that staff is going to have to answer that question for us. How are we going to take the next step?
Well, I have a suggestion that I will pursue as well, because I'm on the technical committee with LATS, and to bring it up there, because we brought up the need for the Northern Beaufort Transit Study, as they are becoming a small urban over there, and we really need, there's a lot of people with need in Beaufort County, and we are commissioned and get ready to start a $250,000 study paid for through LCOG and their funds. And so I will bring that up, that we need a Hilton Head transportation study and see what we can do, because that's bringing consultants in that do the surveys, that do all the things that need to be done. So let me propose that in our technical committee, that's a project.
And I would appreciate that. Thank you. And to the degree that you can ask significant employers on the island where their employees live and give us that information and where they're being dropped off, presumably, that will help us in some of our district planning conversations. We're making some significant decisions in the next couple of months, so that information would be helpful.
I have one comment about all of that. I do think we need collaboration with people who have done these types of things before. That's always helpful. But my concern, as it was with the bridge, is that others don't take the lead role when things roll out, and that Hilton Head maintains the control, because while I love what you've shown us as ideas of what other communities are doing, Hilton Head is different. Hilton Head is not Anywhere USA, and we do have, or at least I'm very concerned about making sure that we don't lose what it is that makes Hilton Head special. And the folks best positioned to make those decisions are those of us here on council and within the town government who want to make sure that we hold on to our uniqueness. And that's not saying that anyone would do something horrible. It's just saying that bottom line is Hilton Head is special and we want to keep it that way.
One final comment from me. I've always struggled with how you measure success in a public transportation system. I don't, every year we see your budget, every year we see numbers, and I don't know if we're measuring something that allows us to say we're making improvements. So I would hope that as a part of this request of staff to investigate, that we begin to create measures that will allow us and future councils to say we are increasing ridership or we're increasing employee participation, whatever those measures are. But that the Tier 1 regional plan has a 3-year, a 5-year goal. The Tier 2, the shuttle system on the island has it. And if we get a Tier 3, what are we trying to accomplish there? So I think that really is, I think, where we need to end up so that future councils can say, hey, we're doing what's right, what we need to do, and so on and so forth.
And in the transit industry, they do something called COAs, Comprehensive Operation Analysis. And a lot of times you get consultants to come and do that, and that's what they do. And they measure everything, and then they look at non-performing, and they make recommendations for, where to go next and what routes need enhancement or don't, with the transit authority and with the community. So I could see that in the future to measure that. I think they do them every 3 to 5 years, and they call them COAs, Comprehensive Operation Analysis.
And one of the measures I think we're looking for is how many cars have we taken off the road?
Absolutely.
So anyway, opportunity for public to comment on this particular item on the agenda. Would anybody else like to add any thoughts? Seeing none, want to thank you very much for taking your time today to come here and present to us. Appreciate it. Congratulations and good luck.
Oh, for sure. And I want to thank you guys for the support of Palmetto Breeze and the interest in expanding it, because I think it's part of the solution.
Okay. I read a proposed motion, request staff investigate alternative strategies to address transportation challenges and opportunities for regional and island services with a goal of increasing ridership and perhaps taking cars off the road.
Second?
May I add, and I'm not sure if it's appropriate here or if it's implied, but I really do feel strongly that we need a survey of giving us some base data, and so that we know what it is that we're projecting and what our goals need to actually be. So a survey which helps inform us of where we are and what our goals for accomplishing a solution is.
I appreciate that. Sean, were you going to address that particular item or something else? Okay.
Good morning. Sean Leininger, Assistant Town Manager. Nice to see everybody today. And thank you to LRTA for the great presentation. As far as the motion from a procedural standpoint, if you could direct your motion to the town manager, that would be appreciated.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Request.
I think, Mr. Chair, all you need to do is substitute town manager for staff.
Yes, right.
Duly noted, Madam Clerk?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Here, hang on.
I agree with what Ms. Becker said. A survey would be very helpful. I'm not sure what you're saying should be in the survey, though.
Well, I could come up with a whole list of things
Okay,
if
then
I'm
I think
given the
it's a-
task,
I think-
however.
I think it's
that's
embedded.
part.
I
You
think-
think it's
yeah,
embedded?
yes,
Just
yeah,
as long as
okay.
it's clear and on the record.
Yeah, okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, have a good day. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.